Greetings and welcome to episode number 14 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about everything past, present, and future of one of gaming's most storied franchises. For this week, we have another major news drop, and all the information this week is around the Zeta Halo. In addition, we have some additional information about the Master Chief Collection. And so let's go ahead and get going because there's a lot of information to cover today. First, let's go ahead and meet the team that's able to be here today. First up is Nick, aka Special Ed, aka Mr. Nick Stone. How's it going, Nick?
What's going on?
Oh my God.
He stole my intro.
I'm all right.
That must be an Aussie thing. I don't know. It's not as cool over here, by the way. Next up, we got Mr. Spartan Austin, aka Mr. Proven. How's it going?
Doing great. How about you?
Good. Next up, Spartan Ursel, aka Soulblazer. How's it going, Mr.
Hey,
Ursel?
going pretty good. Every new Halo update kind of just like reaffirms my faith in the game, which is nice.
Yeah, I am feeling the same thing. I'm looking forward to diving into this stuff this week. Next up, we're going to have Spartan Jesse, aka Mr. Don Cabeza, aka one of the members on the team that likes to read. What's going on, Mr. Jesse?
I've been living a lie. I don't actually know how to read.
All right. And next up, we have Spartan Daniel, aka Mr. Nadian. How's it going?
Pretty good, guys. Feeling a lot like Ursel. Super excited, and we got a double drop of news with some ODST news.
Whoa,
sweet.
calm down. Too much energy. Jesus, you really are excited.
ODST news? We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a kind of a crazy week. So hopefully, as we kind of get back into this Halo news, we will, some of our energy will start to come back a little bit. Finally, as your host today, I'm Spartan One Bad Mother, and just as a couple side notes. So we are recording this today on Friday the 26th, and we are having a Halo community night. That is something that's going to, I think we plan on doing this periodically. So keep up for that at the Xbox Era forums. And that is the reason why Mr. Mike is not with us today, because I double booked him. So that's my fault.
What are you talking about? I'm right here. Hello, everyone. Sandbox.
I think you did a good job. I think we've now got our mic feel for the day. And then just as a reminder, we're also going to have a special book episode by the members of the team that actually read. They'll be releasing that in the middle of the week. So we're going to go ahead and start with the news drop and Inside Infinite for the February news. And there's actually a lot of information in this week's drop. And so what I did is I kind of separated in some different categories. And I'm going to take it a little bit out of order here, but we'll read some of the main parts and really just kind of go around and get some thoughts on that. But really the theme of the article was Zeta Halo. And so what we'll do is we'll talk about the story aspects of it, the graphics and the art. And they also touch on game design and gameplay. So we'll do that last, since we did talk a lot about the sandbox and the gameplay, on previous shows. So we'll go ahead and start on the other end of that and start with the story and the graphics. So we'll go ahead. Let me just go ahead and start reading off some of the aspects of the story. So the story is going to be coming at the player from every angle. And they said it's safe to say that Zeta Halo is as much a character in Halo Infinite as Chief, the pilot, or Asharum. Am I saying that right? Asharum. And
Asharum. I don't know. It doesn't. It's all made up.
Yeah. So they were really focused on that, and like the developers really said that the Zeta Halo is very much a character in of itself. The landscape, the mysterious structures, the surrounding vistas, and even the wildlife found on it act as unique characteristics of the ring. They wanted Zeta to feel like a real and living place, regardless of whether the player is present or not. And they said, like, most importantly, there's an epic visual story to be told, of not only what recently happened to it, but also one that implies its mysterious past and what implications it holds for the future. So they had a couple main goals, and they wanted to first visually show what's happening in current times with the violent occupation of the banished forces and how it shaped the landscape of the ring. And the next part of it, they wanted to create mystery and intrigue around Zeta's past and ultimate purpose, kind of intertwining these two major story characteristics of Zeta. So what I'm going to do is I guess where I'll start is with I'm going to start with you, Don, because I know, again, you've read all the books. You are kind of the aficionado on the lore and things like that. So when you were reading about this aspect, what are some of the things that were coming to your mind?
So yeah, the Zeta Halo was a big thing, especially in the Forerunner trilogy, which was the pre and around Halo 4 time book series. That the Zeta Halo was a big part of that. So speaking of the mysterious past, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Flood, because the Flood and their origins and checking out, or doing experimentation with them was a big part of that in the books. So hinting into that, doing a good job touching into the lore without making it absolutely necessary. And it seems like that's what they're going for. We want to mention and go over what's happened and go over what's happening, instead of giving you vague hints that you must go read this book to have any idea. I like the idea of, we will give you enough to understand it, and if you want more, you can go and read it. And I think that's the best approach that they just haven't hit. They tried 2 and 4. They required too much reading, and then 5 was such a hodgepodge and thrown together late thing that the marketing and books around it barely matched in fact, they did not match the campaign.
Yeah.
So you're about to say so. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's same with that with Jesse. I feel like the way it was cool reading the way they were talking about it, because it looks like if you want to go out of your way to find out the story of the ring, you can. Like if you want to take the time, maybe it'll be like optional locations to explore or audio files. Actually, it's probably going to be audio files. But if you want to go find those, you can. Otherwise, you can just kind of focus in on the story that you're playing through, the Master Chief story. And that's pretty exciting to me, because that means they're not abandoning the stories they've had in the books, which was one of my worries with Infinite, in a sense, because you hear all the complaints about, too much stuff from the books, right? And I get that, but as a book reader, it's kind of awesome when there's a lot of stuff from the books.
Absolutely.
But this feels like a pretty good balance where the stuff is still
Don't
there.
force me to read.
Yeah.
They have audiobooks, Nick. I promise you, they won't hurt you.
Don't force me to hear stuff.
But yeah, this looks like a good balance between them.
So so you guys who read the books, obviously there was a lot of backlash for for those of us that didn't, and in terms of how the story was told in 4 and 5. Did you find those stories satisfying, Daniel? I don't know. You're one of the book readers too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. I mean, you have to go in with the expectation that it's not about Chief, especially with the Forerunner trilogy. It's like you have to remember that it's all trying to set up this entire meta universe. The thing that I'm excited about with Zeta Halo being, the centerpiece of this game is that we never really get to. I mean, people who've never read the books don't understand the relationship that the Forerunners and the Flood and the pre-cursor human race had, like the relationships among them that they had with this location specifically. I mean,
primordial.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Palace of Pain, where they did all of the research to develop the Flood. I mean, I'm hoping that they can. The biggest worry that I have is that I want them to throw this as much as they can in the game without making it feel overwhelming. I mean, I think if they can combine the usage of terminals and then maybe a monitor like we had with Guilty Spark in the original, to kind of like ease the player in so that they can understand why this is such a big deal, even if they haven't read the books.
No, those are some good points, Jesse. I think you were kind of piping in there a little bit. Did you have any other thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was actually funny. It was about the terminals where they were really cool and they're a cool idea, but 99% of people aren't going to watch them.
Yeah,
because if you
exactly.
watched all the terminals in Halo 4, you got a really good idea for the backstory. Like, even without reading the book just sort of expanded on the terminals.
Yeah.
So I guess
It would have to be an unavoidable cutscene of some sort where, okay, at the beginning of this level, to sort of fill you in on something, you get a minute or two of an exposition dump, and they can be done well enough. And if the game's much longer than your average Halo, I think mixing in more of those cutscenes will work better than constantly having them at the beginning and the end of each level when it's a very straightforward linear affair.
Yeah.
As long as they're blur cutscenes, I kind of don't even care.
I don't think they will be, but
Yeah,
I think that was one of the issues, not the issues, but like with a lot of casual players don't really want to watch those. They weren't as interesting to watch like on the terminals, I felt like. But
the bigger issue with the terminals wasn't the terminals themselves; it was the fact that you had to go to a separate app to watch them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they finally fixed that in the MCC.
I know.
So they do it moving forward, it'll be better.
That was the worst.
Like, I like the Waypoint app, but yes, especially with the last generation hardware where shit was slow.
Dude,
Boy,
the
that
Halo
was
channel, man. Oh god.
Can I interest you in smart glass?
Who thought that was a good idea? Yeah, let's make them have to go in a bunch of.
I bet you Sony ends up with smart glass in a few years with the whole 2013 and reverse thing going on.
I actually didn't have that much of a problem with the Halo channel in and of itself. Like, the Halo channel thing I thought was pretty cool. I just hated the goddamn fact that the cutscenes for a game were in it. Like, seriously?
It would work like half the time for me, especially from game.
Oh my god!
And we know Nick likes Crackdown 3, so he's very forgiving. So if he doesn't like something,
that's a damn fun game.
That's a good game.
Yeah,
it's just fun. Stop hating on fun.
Crackdown 3 is a good game.
All right, I will derail this. Actually, Nick, I do want to ask you because you come from the other side of things. You're not one of the book readers, but you have played through all the games. So, like, when you hear all this stuff about the story, like, does it do anything for you, or like, what are some of the thoughts that come to your mind?
No, it does not. The only reason I knew what was going on in the first Halo was because of the way they deliver the story, mostly through the gameplay itself, as opposed to relying on just cutscene after cutscene after cutscene. Like, I skip cutscenes in games. I'm that meme where... What's that meme with Thanos?
You don't even know who I am.
I don't even know who you are. Like, I get to the end boss and I have no idea what's going on. I just skip all the cutscenes.
Nick, I think I have a similar tendency. Maybe it's that thing you get older and you got kids and you're just like, man, this is cutting into my gameplay time. But I think Halo is one of my...
before I had kids. Like, I'm not there to watch movies. I'm there to play the game. Like,
Did you ever watch Street Fighter the movie? Because that has the best version of that with M. Bison. For me, it was just too
Raul Julia.
We should do like a live movie watch with Street Fighter.
I'm that's part of the reason I love BioShock so much, because just everything was delivered in game.
You want it smacked over your head as hard as possible.
No, but you make a really good point though, Nick, because one of the things with Halo C, and I think this is one of the reasons why I really like this game as well, is that it kind of told the story through the environments and through the game
and through Cortana.
Yeah,
basically through Cortana in your ear. Like, don't get me wrong, CE had cutscenes. I'm aware of that. But I didn't need those cutscenes to know what was going on. It was mostly through Cortana talking to me the whole time.
Halo 4 really went for a mix of that, with having the little faces in the top left, giving you tons of exposition in what's going on, mixed with some shorter cutscenes. I think that's fine, especially with their whole one-shot philosophy, where it's mainly zooming in or out of Chief's point of view at the end. Like, you're always a part of it. It's not just some weird cut and then you're a completely different place seeing something like completely different.
CE, dude, when the snow showed up the first time I was playing, I'm like, how? What is happening?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then she like Cortana tells you right
Yeah,
away.
exactly.
But you know,
Afterwards.
it didn't feel like it's not like one of those cartoons where the villain's telling you the whole plot
Yeah,
before
yeah.
he waits too long or whatever. It wasn't done in a cheesy way. I think they were smart about it. Proven, I didn't get any of your thoughts there. Why don't you jump on the mic and kind of give me kind of what your perspective is on the story for that you've heard so far?
I mean, it all sounds pretty good. I think the thing when I'm reading what they're saying, I'm hoping that they're kind of leaning back towards how Combat Evolved told the story, because I know that 343 like they like to do cutscenes, so I'm expecting a lot of cutscenes for Infinite, but I'm hoping they kind of give a little bit more environmental storytelling, because the reason I like Combat Evolved so much is it's like I felt like I when I'm playing the game, I could just look around at the world and kind of get a feeling of what's going on. And like they didn't have to explain everything. Like there was a little bit of mystery. So I'm hoping for Zeta Halo, like if I'm walking around, like I don't need everything explained to me. There could be some mystery. So I'm hoping they kind of lean in that direction.
Yeah, actually, right on that point. So I didn't read this, but I'm going to read it now because it ties in perfectly with what you said. So one of the developers said the ring definitely has its own story to tell, and the environment artists have done an amazing job bringing this to life. Memories of past battle scars. Memories of past battles scars the surface, and evidence of bigger events can be seen in the fractured chunks on the ring floating in the sky. This is something I really care about because I am more of a show me, don't tell me kind of player. I find that discovering things and figuring things out for myself go much further to immerse me in this world. So, like when he says that, I think that ties in exactly with what you were talking about, Proven, and it sounds like they are leaning into, again, and they've said it over and over again, but they're really trying. It's just like a spiritual reboot of CE.
We are
and
leaning into the nostalgia of Halo fans who see
Mhm.
way more depth in CE than there ever actually was.
yeah.
That's one way to
Stop
put
it.
it.
But
There was good, sorry to cut you off, but there was good world building. There was mystery. Half of the time it was because there wasn't anything there, but it looked cool, so people filled in the blanks,
Yeah.
and then the books
Yes.
came in and
And
filled
they
them in
had
a
to
different way.
Yeah, and
So,
they
but you
had
can't.
a bunch of content.
Yeah, so you can't get away with that now because it's obviously been around so long. But if you say these PR words correctly, you get the nostalgic fans to rub their hands together and shake in excitement.
Well,
But that was
me.
the best
So,
part about Halo. That was
yeah.
what I liked. It was a simple story that hinted at something bigger but didn't delve into it.
Well,
That
that's
was
the
the
funny
best
thing.
part.
That's a lot. One of the main things people didn't like about Destiny 2 in comparison to 1 is that there were more answers in Destiny 2. And the reason there weren't more answers in Destiny 1 and it seemed super mysterious is because they cut everything
Yeah.
and didn't have enough time to actually write a story. So I get the fact that I hope that they keep a sense of mystery, but that it's much more defined and they do have a way they're going with it from the start. And it's not, let's just fill in the blanks and add in all this depth in a later title. Like
For sure, they had this planned out. For sure.
Yeah, I mean they've talked. I mean that's one of Staten's big things is he loves writing and going through this and bringing him in and planning those next 10 years and what our expansion's going to be.
Yeah, I mean,
how's it all going to work? That's got me really excited.
If you look in the blog, there's a line that addresses just this exactly. It goes, players will not only experience the immediate story of Chief's reawakening to confront the banished Cortana, but if they look around, they may find glimpses of the future as well. So clearly they have it kind of planned out in advance. That line has
a bunch
me
of
thinking,
messages saying buy GameStop stock.
Maybe the Flood might not be in the base game.
Oh, good.
Well, maybe they're bringing somebody else. That's a good point, though. And Don, honestly, to kind of push back against that, I mean, let's think about like most, movies, TV shows. Usually the build-up, if it's got a mystery, the build-up's way more fun than the payoff.
I know, but there
Yeah,
have been some things that are actually really good at paying it
Exactly.
off lately. Like, even if it's a manga, Attack on Titan literally had a plan for, like, he figured it all out ahead of time, and building into it has been so enjoyable to go through. And that's what I want. I don't want mystery for the sake of mystery. I want a mystery that has good answers at the end, even if it's not everything. The overarching answers need to be good.
I agree with you, but I do think the build up is
Better agree with me.
yeah. The build up's is usually a lot of fun. I mean, I'm thinking about like TV shows like Lost, and then gosh, even Game of Thrones, and it's like, man, it's like all these things that just kind of failed on the landing. And there's movies like that too. So a lot of times the fun is, it's a lot easier, I think, to build up and have all that mystery. And I don't necessarily need everything to pay off.
Very quickly, the funny thing with Lost is the guy who did that ended up doing The Leftovers, which built up and ended beautifully, and then Watchmen, which built up and ended beautifully. Like he learned, he's like, yes, those are probably two of my favorite shows of all time, and I hated Lost because it was let's make a mystery and we don't know where it's going. So his next two projects, the main focus was literally, I need to know where these are going.
You know what? Let's just use what all the fans are saying it is. Daniel, I haven't got you in a little bit. What other thoughts do you have from that?
Yeah, just on the point about building mystery, it's a lot easier to do that when it's the first entry in a game. When
True.
it's the sixth now, I mean, you have a lot of expectations. You also have a lot of the metaverse that, Bonnie Ross has mentioned multiple times that she sees Halo as Xbox's Star Wars, and so with that, you have years and novels and everything else that comes with,
and they keep releasing them too. It's not like they've stopped.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Like, I understand you need the mystery, but you also need the payoff. I mean, WandaVision, in my opinion, is a fantastic example of, for all the comic fans who've been watching it, like I'm not going to spoil anything about the most recent episode, but the payoff has been so worth it. And I think,
okay, I'm watching it tonight, so.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So I think for people who have been waiting for Zeta Halo, if they can pull off the payoff will be worth more to me, and probably to Jesse too, than the years and years of reading about it and about hearing about it, about building that mystery.
That was my biggest issue with not Halo 4 necessarily, but with where they went afterwards. So OBM, you originally asked how did Halo 4 and 5 feel after, like, if you've read all the books, etc., right? And it's like two polar opposites. Halo 4 felt amazing if you read the books. Like, I played 100%. Halo 4 first, and then I liked it. And then I played Halo 4 after reading the Forerunner trilogy, and it felt like a different game. You see these characters, they feel like old friends, and you're like, this is so cool. So many little connections. And the main thing is, it feels like it's building up towards something with the Chief. And back in the day, they called it the Reclaimer saga, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It felt like it was building up. People had these really cool theories about Chief and the isodidact and whatnot, and I'm like, man, this sounds amazing. And then Halo 5 comes and basically throws all of it out the window. Like, completely out the window.
They basically got their Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, basically. And in a way, Infinite feels, it is a continuation of Halo 5, of course. The audio file.
My recording.
Sorry, I accidentally hit the mute button on my mic. God, no, I was still there.
Son of a.
Anyways, what was I gonna say? Crap. Well, Infinite.
I like turtles.
Infinite feels like a mix of the two, where it's a continuation of Halo 5. But I really hope, because it's Zeta Halo, and so it's clearly still tied to the Forerunner trilogy, I really hope they bring back some of that mystery that Halo 4 had that wasn't able to get really properly pay off. No, not pay off. What's the word? Redeemed? No. You know what I mean. Elaborated on, exactly. And eventually, concluded on. That's what my major hopes
like what happened with the librarian and Chief.
Exactly. What was that? He just got zapped. She did something to him. We don't really know what.
He's structurally changed because the end cinematic where he's way taller than Palmer. I mean, all those things that they were building up and for were fantastic, were mysterious, were what we love Halo for, and then they just kind of dropped it.
Yeah, the backlash made him just take everything back and end up going for far more of a doggies.
And admittingly, Halo 4 did. You guys are 100% correct. Those terminals should have been rearranged into mandatory cutscenes or something. They did the players dirty in that sense.
Yeah.
Do we think a monitor would fit? Would be able to achieve? Without having the same effect, without having to pull you out for a cutscene. I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking. Cause they've done that with 1, with 3.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it like until you just actually said it. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, the thing for me is like I just hope they're able to integrate the story where like I don't have to be transitioned to a 15-minute cutscene
Yeah.
to understand what's happening. Like
Yeah.
I'm someone who likes cutscenes, but it shouldn't be required. Like if you don't for Halo 4, like I didn't read any of the books and I didn't really want to watch all of the terminals, so I was completely confused until I read about it afterwards.
Yeah, so having a monitor that's following you and talking to you the whole time, kind of like Cortana would in the previous games, or like Guilty Spark did.
Give us exuberant witness.
Yes.
All right. So quick question for you guys that read the book, because a lot of people in the Halo community that are deep into the lore were really excited about the fact that it is Zeta Halo. So like there should be a lot of mystery there. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Are you kind of indifferent, or is the fact that this is Zeta Halo something that really
It's
excited you?
Not just for tying into any of the backstory, but also for the fact that Zeta Halo has been so blown up and in constant repair that it's just different than most of the other ones, where there's going to be more access to the subterranean parts. There's going to be, I mean, they even talked about it in the screenshot, hijacking a Banshee so you can fly over a void of stars to get to the next area. Like there's more options for it than the other Halos.
It's going to be a really cool environment for sure.
That sounds awesome. All right, so I'll give kind of my thoughts and then see if there's any final thoughts before we move to the next topic. But yeah, I mean, real quick, I think you guys covered a lot of it. For me, as somebody again who hasn't read the books, who's played all the games numerous times, the thing that really excited me was just kind of what they were talking about with the, building up that mystery, kind of this fact that this is a reboot, so you don't have to know everything, and I do think that the fact that they're talking about trying to tell the story on the ring by having, just different things to explore that are going to tie into maybe different side stories sounds really interesting to me. Like one of the things that I dislike in a lot of open world games is like a lot of the side stuff where it's like the side story is like, hey, go fetch me my wooden leg or some shit like that has nothing to do with the core story. So to me, from a gameplay aspect, I think I'm more like Nick. I'm not really somebody who likes to sit there and there's been few exceptions, but most games just don't hold me off of just cutscenes and things like that. So I am looking forward to just the type of storytelling they're going to go into. I almost don't really want to know a whole lot about it because of that. But before we go on to the next story, does anybody have any other final thoughts on this or anything I might have missed in regards?
A short one.
Sure.
I'm curious. There's a book coming out next week. They just announced another book today. I wonder how much those, if at all, they'll tie into the game. I'd imagine there might be little things depending on the time frame, because they said they're keeping the Halo 5 story going. It's obviously, a while later, but Cortana and the Guardians and the Banished and all that. There's a Brute who looks friendly on the cover. They've never really had. Brutes are always assholes. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go. It's proven keeps giving us feedback.
Go ahead, so.
Oh well, yeah. Well, sorry, I was gonna say. Speaking of cutscenes, I feel at Halo 1, I actually really like the cutscenes in Halo 1, and I feel one of the reasons why they worked so well was because they only came after like an exhausting level.
Right.
You play the level. Usually, the ending of the level is like really tough or really exhausting in some ways, and then you sit down, put the controller to the side, watch like a 2-3 minute cutscene as like a break, and then you're back in.
That's a good point. Yeah, it kind of makes it, and that was like the old school way of doing it, right? Like it used to be cutscenes were like a reward for getting through a tough level.
Yeah, exactly.
So you kind of look forward to, you needed a chance to take a breather, and that was fine. Yeah, but when they give you just cutscene after cutscene after cutscene, it kind of takes something away from that.
Like, oh man, when the first time I experienced the last cutscene in the game, it felt amazing. I died so many times in that run. Oh man.
Yep.
All right. Cool. So any other thoughts there before we kind of move on to the graphics? No?
Nope.
All right. I'm going to go on to the graphics then. So I'm going to read some of the quotes, and again, these are taken from different parts of the article, so they might feel a little disjointed. But I just want to kind of get in some of the key things they said, and then get everybody's thoughts on these. So it says, as far as our artistic goals for the campaign goes, we have focused on two key themes: legacy and simplicity when it comes to the visual experience we're building. For legacy, we really want players to feel like they are experiencing a game that they remember fondly. So this is for me, Don. Halo combat involved, but with modernized graphics, of course. As far as simplicity is concerned, we wanted to ensure that we steer away from overly noisy designs and details, which is a key takeaway for the team coming off of Halo 5. With Halo Infinite, we wanted to take this new adventure back to its roots and create a visually pleasing experience that doesn't overwhelm with unnecessary complexity, where readability and clear artistic composition prevail. This is our artistic interpretation of a beautiful world to exist within, rather than something that is purely grounded in photorealism. Both goals have been a true challenge to balance here, especially against the expectations of what it means to be a next-gen title. But through some incredible team collaboration, hard work, and community feedback, we're hoping to land something that everyone will enjoy and appreciate. All right, so I got some other ones to kind of touch on, but yeah, I'll read just a couple of these clips. So he said, like, we made the early decision to go back to Halo's roots and recapture the PNW art palette of Zeta. We immediately
Pacific
headed out.
Northwest, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, what the hell does that mean? Thank you, though. I appreciate that. I was hoping that it's somebody that the audience already knew, and I was just going to play like I did.
From Washington.
Played off. So we immediately headed out into the mountains, forests, and valleys to not only for inspiration, but more importantly, lots of photo references. So just kind of think about that. So they're really trying to capture that wilderness. We take in the visual design of the jackals and grunts back closer to their appearance in Halo 3 and previous titles. We want players to feel that nostalgic familiarity with the designs. And then he said, well, then this is the last one, was one of my favorite features in the game is our time of day lighting system that is active while you're playing in the game. This has been one of, if not the largest graphical feature implemented into our engine over the last few years. It allows us to create artistic scenes and settings that have vastly different visual tones and moods depending on the time of day. So what I'm going to do is, I guess we'll kind of break it up into two parts, because one of it's just really sort of the focus on going back to the simplicity, and the next is really more on the technical level. So in terms of the art style, let's start there. Nick, you want to talk about the arts? You want to kick it off on the art style stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you guys already know, my old eyes are maybe degrading a little bit. And when I first saw these screenshots, I was looking at them on an iPhone 8 Plus, and didn't think it looked all that improved at all. But having since looked at proper 4K shots, I can see it has improved. But yeah, I don't mind everything they're going for, and they've still got a lot of time to improve it further. But I think seeing everything in motion will be where the proof is in the pudding.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, and that's the thing that that's the thing that brought Halo CE to life, right? Was like getting out of the ship for the first time and around. Yeah, it really is that kind of aspect. Daniel, let's go to you next. Kind of what was your thoughts on the let's say the artistic choices they made?
I mean, I love it. I think, I'm not one of the people who still look at Combat Evolved as their favorite Halo, but I absolutely love it for what it was. But I feel like Halo 5 was simultaneously too noisy, but also too simplistic from a geometric standpoint. And obviously, they had to make a ton of cuts to make it 60 frames per second on Xbox One hardware. So I think bringing back some of that, the nature and some of the more complex geometry, but going back to the simple, texture designs, not necessarily the quality as we've seen from the screenshots, but just bringing back that less noisy. So you're not, the distraction isn't in the building or whatever. It's around. The entire environment, the atmosphere itself. I think if we look at some of those screenshots side by side with what we saw in the demo from last year, they've made considerable improvements to the texture quality. I'm not worried. I mean, I've never really been worried about the technical side of things from 343. They've proven it to me time and time again. I think having a time of day lighting system it's going to be unique, obviously, for Halo because it's never had one. And some of the lighting obviously suffered from that last year, and I think we'll still see people complain about that aspect here and there just because they don't understand that dynamic lighting, especially when you have a revolving time of day, it adds to the calculations, it adds to the complexities that
Expensive, yeah.
yeah, it's expensive as hell. So I mean, but at the same time, you look at games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Forza, that do have those systems, and they create such a it creates the feeling that nothing is ever the same,
Yeah.
and you get these incredible shots. You get the golden hour, you get these dark, right before the dawn shots that you never would have in those static lighting situations. So I think it's all great. I'm not worried about the technical side from 343. So
Well, and like to your point, the dynamic aspect of it makes it more immersive, right? Like that's something that it's hard to convey that in a still screen because it's still,
absolutely,
but yeah, when it's more dynamic, it just brings what you're looking at more to life. And sometimes those stills really don't do it justice.
right.
Austin, I haven't heard from you in a little bit, man. What's kind of some of your thoughts on the art? You're haven't been around as long as most of us, or some of us older people here that like things like things back in the day when they were simple and better. So, what's kind of your thoughts as as a new generation when it comes to the art style?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of how Halo Infinite has looked. Basically, everything before the July demo, I was like incredibly happy with. Like, I don't know if you guys remembered, but like the day before the July demo, they showed off the cover art, and like to this day, I still think that cover art's probably the best cover art of any Halo I've seen. Like I really like what they're doing with it. I'm really impressed that how open 343 is with like they clearly listen. Like they're literally stating things that the community have given feedback on, and they've actually corrected it, which is really impressive.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree, and they're definitely taking a lot of feedback from classic fans that have been with the franchise a while. Now, I will be so I have a buddy who I play with, and he actually does. He's the one who's a developer, and he actually is not as big of a fan. Because he likes seeing the science the science fiction become more, I guess, advanced looking. He's like, why is Master Chief still got a diaper on the outside?
Yeah, more
you
like a
know,
hard sci-fi fan than a soft one. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So he liked it kind of moving back. He's like, why do I have more technology in my glove than Master Chief? Now, Don, I know you are a big fan of some of the more recent, or at least the Halo 4. So talk about the art style. Like, do you kind of wish they would have maybe not listened to the classic fans as much and would have continued to go down that path of more advanced looking sci-fi or more detail, or what's sort of your impression when you see that?
It's a little bit Power Rangery in 5. I liked 5 to play. The art style was okay, nothing great. The actual human faces and everything, especially in the cutscenes, were way better than they ever had been. But
Right.
as far as like that classic Halo look, I'm fine with it. The main thing is I like really weird sci-fi where it's like this more crazy organic technology and less Gundam for trying to be a little realistic. Halo has never been a photorealistic game. It's never gone for that. It's always been stylized. So I'm fine with keeping it a little more basic, but having some like weird things you wouldn't expect that actually do feel alien would be cool. I hope there's some of that mixed in.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, Infinite feels like it's open enough that it can have a mix of a few different art styles together. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Or
If
at least
they're
that's
on
the
Zeta
hope.
Yeah.
Halo, They
like even the. They're good.
Yeah, like if it's on Zeta Halo and there's hundreds of thousands of years of history on it, even more if you go back to how old the primordial was. The the really weird organic flood stuff that's just less body horror and more a marrying of the organic and the inorganic, which is what the Forerunners focused on, the inorganic. That would be cool. That would be something I'd like mixed with the classic UNSC and Covenant and the Banished. The Banished have some really cool tech, and I imagine there's going to be some very different structures, different vehicles, and weapons from them. So that I'm excited about.
I said you were saying something. What was that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the cool thing about what we've seen so far is they're obviously taking inspiration from the older Halos, but they're still keeping some of their newer designs. Like, in the blog post they show with the image with the sniper rifle, you can see that the Forerunner structure, I believe, it looks a lot like the Halo 4 and Halo 5
Yeah,
styles.
it does.
But there's also a mix of like the Halo 1 style. So I think that's cool because like I
There's
don't
damage
mind the
to it. It's not so smooth.
yeah, like I don't mind the Halo 4 and 5 Forerunner stuff, but like I also like the original stuff, so I'm glad that they're putting in both. So like it's not like choosing, it's just like they're mixing the styles together.
In a
I think that's a
Natural
big part
evolution.
of this game where it's everything that's ever been in Halo with new stuff mixed in.
Yeah, it sounds like they're really trying to focus on, and actually my buddy pointed this out too, that it's like even when they were playing the game, it's like they were playing it slower, even though you could tell you could still run and do some things
Yeah,
because
in the demo,
it's
right?
like
100%.
we don't want to offend the old classic Halo, but just give you enough so that if you're looking for it, you'll see it's still there. So I think you guys are making some good points. I think like this whole threading the needle thing is going to be a really tough task for 343 because you really now do have a divide between people that have the nostalgia and really want the old style versus people that they've grown used to the new style and things like that. But so I didn't let you get a chance.
Yeah, I was gonna say something really quick where I feel like it's a really smart decision to focus more so on. They keep mentioning Halo 3 a fair bit. Halo 3 and CE are the two they keep mentioning because there are a lot of people that still really like those designs. You know what I mean? And by really like, I mean like really like they'll kill for them. Yeah. You can't really say the same thing about 4 and 5. People, yeah, sure, they like the designs, but they're nothing like, they didn't stick in people's heads as much as the original trilogies did. So by focusing back on the older art style, you get both the people that love the old art style and the people that don't really care for it because they're like, hey, it still looks good. I'm okay. Right?
On Game Pass, you're going to play it anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just Game Pass matter. It doesn't matter.
So I feel like it was a really smart move on their part. And to be completely honest, I didn't see the need to change the Covenant races around. You know what I mean? I get it. You're a new company. You're not Bungie. You want to make your own changes to it.
Right. Yeah,
but
I agree.
You really didn't need to. Halo 4s, for example, the Covenant, I didn't really like how they looked that much. Jackals were way too big. I misplaced them for elites half the time every time I see them.
When I first saw them, yeah, I was like, I thought it was a new enemy. The first time I ever ran into them. But like for me personally, and I get it, like, and again, I sound like the freaking old man of the group, but so I'm self-aware of that. But one of the things is I get that back in the day that had Bungie probably had a lot more horsepower, they probably would have had more detail, right, in Halo CE than they had.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes things that you just are forced to work with or accidents end up being working out for you. And to me, the lack of detail always made it feel more alien. Like it was like familiar enough, but it also, like, even when I go back and play it now, it still works because it just feels like, oh, hey, this is an alien structure. It doesn't need to have, too much detail, and it just felt like a familiar yet kind of alien combination, and so that always worked for me. And I think the other thing that worked without all the clutter, the visual clutter, was the gameplay. Like, especially as this goes back to what Nick was saying, as I'm getting older playing these games, like I play Call of Duty, it's like, where the hell are these shots coming from? And I have to like wait, until I'm probably dead, and I see it on replay.
Oh god, it's the worst.
Yeah, it's like everything
Oh.
blends together, and it's like just all this. It just after a while, you just can't spot it. But in the classic Halos, you're never really doing that. Like everything, just your enemies really just stand out from the backgrounds, and they don't get lost.
Outside of a sniper shot, you generally have a longer time to death, so you have
Yeah.
a little bit of defense, and you know where things are coming from.
Yeah. Though I will swear that whatever color I'm not is harder to see.
That's true. Daniel, I think you had your hand raised. What do you want to say on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say about the point earlier with the graphics. It's funny to me. I think most of us were there during the launch of the original Halo, and it wasn't until after 343 really took the mantle that there was this expectations of
Graphic powerhouse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at Halo. Yeah, it was amazing for the time. Halo 2 was one of the first games with normal maps on console, but it was ugly. 3 Bungie did have a ton of horsepower that they never had with the previous gen. And I mean, most of us remember 3 was not lauded for its graphics by any measure. It was
fuzzy.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
it came after Gears of War. Remember, like, and people were like,
yep.
Why doesn't your flagship look as even in the ballpark of it?
Yeah, and the human characters. I mean, if you look at them even on MCC, you're like, Jesus, this is bad. But then ODST, the same thing. Reach was the first time graphics really were kind of pushed to the mantle, but there were so many concessions that they had to make with the motion blur and everything else that Halo 4 being made on the same console as 3 of those other titles was, in my mind at the time, mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Because 343
it was ridiculous, man. Halo 4 right now still looks as good as most Xbox One games.
Yeah, so like, I mean, maybe that's 343's own fault for making Halo's graphical prowess their stamp. But I think people who are kind of still doubting their abilities at this point just haven't been paying attention for 9 years now.
Well, and it goes to, you make some really good points, Daniel. I think the one thing to keep in mind is it goes to prioritization, right? Like we know that if you throw enough money, the studio's done it before, and if you throw enough money at it, then you can make something look pretty, and they've already proven that with Halo 4. But then the downside of Halo 4 is those environments weren't that wide, and the AI really did not advance. In fact, I would say in some areas it took a step back. And so like to me, I've replayed that game. I think I played it 2 or 3 times, and even on the hard difficulties, it never really felt as sandboxy as some of the other previous Halos from Bungie. And so and then you kind of throw in what they talk about here with the lighting and how demanding that is. And I think if you're kind of people who are aware of game development know that lighting can take a lot of resources if you're going to use a more advanced lighting system. In fact, it's probably one of the most demanding things. And so I guess that begs a question, and I'll throw this kind of out to you guys. So when they talk about the time of day lighting system, and they talk about this being one of the largest graphical features that's implemented into the engine, and you start adding in things like, hey, they want to have a wider sandbox, they want to have wider environments, they want to have AI, be able to take that up a notch. And I know they've talked about it, they haven't really shown it or gotten too much detail yet, but at least at a high level, they said the AI is going to be more advanced. And so all these things, it's a prioritization thing. So when you have all these other kind of things you got to compute, you're not going to have as much to have photorealistic textures, I guess, right? And so, what did you say?
Variable rate shading. They're going to have. I'm hoping this is going to be one of the first games that really utilizes the game core functionalities and the things that are built into the hardware of the Series S and X. At least for those versions.
Yeah, and you're right. Like there's some things they can do to try to get efficiency, but no matter how much power you have, it's always going to be a prioritization in game development. So
absolutely.
In my opinion, I think this is the right call. I can already hear certain people on Twitter and stuff like that going, doing screenshots of a side by side of of a Last of Us and saying which looks better. And
zoomed in 1,000 times.
Yeah, but the thing is like this. I think this game is going to age really well, like from what we've seen
Yeah.
so far. And I think a game that feels dynamic is going to it's gonna be more immersive. So maybe it doesn't show up as well when you're doing screenshots, but I've said a bunch of things there. Let me kind of throw back to some of you guys on some of that stuff. Don, did you have your hand up, or was it Austin next?
I did.
Okay, go ahead, man.
I got to try and remember what I was thinking about because I typed that like 3 minutes ago.
Austin, how about you go and then let Don catch his thoughts.
Okay, just a quick. Yeah, I agree with what you said about how you think the game's gonna age well. Like when I go back, like when I'm playing Halo 3 today, like it still looks really good to me. And that game came out 13 years ago. Like there's some things that haven't aged well. Like the faces look terrible.
Yeah.
Some of
Right.
the textures look really rough.
They looked terrible when it came out.
Yeah. But like the overall, like just the aesthetics and like, the color palettes and everything, like they look so good. Like I think I posted a picture where I was just walking around on, I think it was Last Resort, and like just the colors of the map look so good. And I think that's one of the things I didn't love about like Halo 5 is I thought the colors were kind of like they weren't pleasing to look at. And like when I'm
Right.
looking at the pictures for Infinite, like everything just looks so colorful, which is real. And that type of art style you tends to age well.
Yep. Well, and think about that, like with even like Nintendo games. Like, why do people still like to look at them? And they run on basically on freaking phone
Phones.
technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. But people still like it brings it's visually. So like I think like the way I put it, like Halo Infinite's probably when it releases. By the time we see some of the next gen videos, from Hellblade and some of the stuff Sony has, it's probably not going to be the most visually impressive game, but I think it might be one of the more visually pleasing games, if that makes sense. Like Austin, you made some good points with the color palette. I still like some of the outdoor environments. In terms of shooters, that's one of the things that really stands out with Halo is when you're in these outdoor areas and you see these big skyboxes and like these bright colors and things like that. It's not common. A lot of today's shooters, you even think about like Wolfenstein and Doom and stuff like that. Even though they look visually impressive, it's not necessarily after a while, it's technically impressive, but it's not necessarily visually as pleasing, if that makes sense.
I mean, both Doom and Borderlands, I had to like start the series, Borderlands 2, I should say, multiple times to get into it because I just couldn't do the sheer amount of like orange for Doom. Like it's just orange.
I hear Transistor in the background there. You might need his diaper change.
And
if I may interject, Mr. Blazers and Mr. Mother, back to what you were saying earlier about Halo Infinite aging well visually. I don't think it should be underestimated how much of a role 60 FPS plays in that.
Right. No, right.
With Nintendo's games as well.
Yeah.
Because I understand that how a game feels has nothing to do directly with how a game looks. But I don't know if it's a subconscious thing. I don't know. I can't explain it, and I'm probably too dumb to do so. But a game at 60 just somehow looks better. I don't know why. The same game at 30 and the same game at 60, somehow the game looks better at 60. I can't explain
Even
it.
something newer like the Division 2 went to 60, and the temporal reconstruction it uses that most games use nowadays definitely works better at a higher frame rate. So for newer titles like that, it absolutely will be the case moving forward.
Yeah, like I reviewed New Super Lucky's Tale, and when I reviewed it, it was native 4K 60. And then it got the double frame rate boost, the recent one that came out for backwards compatible games, and I swear to God, it looked even cleaner.
Yeah, I'm with you. It does.
It looked. I could not believe how sharp and clean New Super Lucky's Tale looked at 120. It was unbelievable.
Well, and that's key too. Like when you kind of combine that with some of these, some of the color palettes and things. No, you're right. I think there is a science.
I've got it on New Super Lucky's Tale. Still running back compat mode, right?
Yeah.
So it's getting a base 16 anisotropic filtering added onto it that it did not have last generation, because that goes for every backwards compatible game that the series consoles run. So by default, it is going to be cleaner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like the difference between a low and a high frame rate is a low frame rate, the game will look good still. You know, like in the screenshots.
That's right. As soon as it moves, it looks horrible.
Exactly. A high frame rate game will still look good even as you're moving. So if it's a game where you keep moving, like Forza or Super Lucky's Tale or, you know, Halo, that's a really big thing.
Why do you think certain people love photo modes?
Yeah, seriously.
Keep that between us. Keep that between us.
All right, Miles Morales is a very good looking game in motion. I think they've done incredible things with that tech to get a ray tracing mode in at 60 frames per second. Every single promotional image they put out was a bull shot from the photo mode, and they haven't done that with Halo.
Yeah.
So people will take it, at it, compare it to a cutscene in The Last of Us 2, and not a gameplay section in The Last of Us 2, and then just, you know, it's the same. It's the normal console warring horse crap.
Well, yeah.
Oh, and that's the thing. When I played Spider-Man Remastered at 60, I swear it looked better. It looked better at 60. Like it was just, it was great. It makes it 60 and 120 make everything better.
Yeah.
Well, there's something to that, because I remember, I can't remember who it was that said this. They were on some sort of podcast or talk show, and I think somebody keeps track of the sales. I mean, you know, when you actually ask gamers what they prefer, you know, better graphics or better frame rate, they'll tell you better graphics, but then they'll actually the sales always show opposite, because all the top games that you know people stick with are, you know, usually the 60 frame. And you know, there's a reason why those developers prioritize the frame rate, because some people don't really necessarily realize it, maybe that it is the frame rate, but they just know this game feels better. You know, it looks better in motion, and no, I don't think that's your imagination, Nick. I think that's absolute. It's absolutely something.
I am absolutely stoked that Insomniac have like, okay, well, 60's back for Ratchet this time around.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely wrapped about it.
No, I agree. So, so with the lighting thing, I guess we'll just really quickly make sure that we everybody's kind of got their fill in there. I know we got some other things to cover, so we probably need to move it on. But so nobody here is upset about wishes they would have gotten the more photorealism.
I am furious about it.
No.
Not at all. Not at all.
All right.
The photorealism was never the issue for me. I don't know if you guys know, but I really like that PBR look, that physical based rendering look that some games have. Like, sorry.
There's an American beer called Pabst Blue Ribbon, and every time you said that on the Discord, I had no idea what you were talking about, and thought you were talking about Pabst Blue Ribbon beer.
Physical based rendering, like there's some even if the models themselves in a game, for example, aren't that great, when a game has really good PBR, there's just this thing about it that I love, and that's more what I'm hoping for from Halo. But maybe that's just me. Like, I've always used that example between Street Fighter V and Killer Instinct. Like, Killer Instinct's models are actually more detailed. The backgrounds are more detailed. But the lighting and the PBR is there in Street Fighter V, and it just seems to make the game look better than Killer Instinct, even though I would argue the models in Killer Instinct are better and more detailed.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just, there's something about PBR that just makes games look so nice.
It's how lighting wraps around it. It's how, I mean, I agree.
And how the models and the characters sit in the world, and how they're lit, and it's just and I'm hoping that they get that right in Halo.
Halo Infinite's original screenshots were really bad in that regard, as far as there was no depth to anything. And I think that was the biggest improvement in what they released yesterday, is how everything fits right.
Yeah, those images are really, really pretty. All right, so so that was a lot on graphics.
Sorry, one last thing about graphics. It's very short though, but basically, it's I've seen people keep saying this again and again, where it's like, oh, but those are PC screenshots. Honestly, with the consoles we have now, the series consoles, I don't care anymore if it's a PC screenshot or not. We found that the consoles are performing pretty close to PCs, at least in terms of high or ultra, when they do the comparisons. So that's okay. If it's a little worse looking on the Xbox, I don't mind, you know?
Yeah, I don't think if it's a little bit worse, you're not going to, especially with that kind of style. I
I don't
don't
think
think
it's
you're
the
going to.
gotcha that it used to be, you know? In the previous
You know,
generation, you'd say, oh, that demo was amazing, but it was running on PC. We don't know at all what it's going to look like.
Yeah,
Today,
people
it's,
don't.
yeah.
I was gonna say people don't understand just how much of a jump. I mean, even the Series S is, but especially the Series X. I mean, the PS5 also is a pretty great piece of kit, but the Series X is packing some features that are laying the foundation for some. If developers adopt these, things like BRS, mesh shading, all that kind of stuff, there are some incredible efficiency boons that are just going to make the image quality much better than what we've ever seen from anything prior to 360. I would say like that was the largest jump at the time. This eclipses that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I will mention on that, and again, I don't want to turn this into like a development podcast, especially since we're kind of far over. But
Sorry.
no. But you do bring up some good points, though, actually, and it is a reminder that the developers did, even last year when they said they were, going to release it last year, they did mention the fact that it was going to continuously get visual upgrades, in the future. And talking to like a developer, there is things that are still not unlocked or just recently been unlocked, and so, like, he was saying that it's going to be like the end of this year or beginning of next year, you're going to start to see some of the impact of those types of things. And then down the road, you start to see more things like the machine learning and stuff. And we know that like 343 is already shown with Halo Infinite that they will support it, and Microsoft is going to financially support this game a long time. So I think, I don't mind them even overshooting it right now with PC and things like that, and using, over time, you'll probably will see this start to sorry, you guys posting memes. But I think you'll start. I think you're going to see this continuously improve even visually down the road. So it's just something to keep in mind. But I guess we should try to move on to some other topics. I think maybe we'll fly through some of these a little bit faster since
We
we are.
never fly through.
I know I'm lying, like I always do to our audience. They can see the time by now, though. So I'll tie a couple of things together. So they really talked about. There's a little spot in here where they talked about the game design, and then they talked about they went back and talked a little bit about the sandbox. So we won't spend as much time there since we really covered that in detail on the last show. But talking about the game design in regards to the environments versus the how does it play versus how does it look. So the question was, can you talk about the process of collaboration that goes into creating Zeta Halo and its experiences? Does the world team create a cool space and then gameplay designers jump in to layer on the fun, or do designers spec out the experience as a blueprint for the world team to go build off of? And so the developer said, this can be a complex one to answer easily, as it really depends on the specific experience being built. The world we have created for Halo Infinite is very large with a finite team size to create it, so we must be strategic in how we build each experience. There's no one size fits all for this project. So in some cases, it makes sense for the design to go first and lay out a space that's fun for combat with an artist following to ensure visual qualities are being met. In other cases, it might mostly be an artistic endeavor that has a world artist creating the space with the designer following afterwards to place any game design aspects on top. And sometimes it's a tight collaboration between the designer and artist to make the best experience possible. At the end of the day, each experience we create is a collaboration between many disciplines. So basically, and just kind of summarize what I keep saying is, when they ask them which way do you go, they say there's really not one way they start, right? Like they kind of collaborate. So that definitely is an important thing to kind of highlight because, I think maybe in the past 343's prioritize the aesthetics over the gameplay. But let me push it over to let's see, who have we not started with? Austin, how about you, man? Go ahead and kind of talk about what your thoughts are on the kind of the game design approach.
I mean, I don't really have too many thoughts on this specifically. I just think I mean, obviously, I guess the artist and the whoever's like creating like the physics, like the layout of the map, they obviously have to work together to make sure it's both fun and it also looks good. But like based on everything we've seen so far, like it looks like something where like it looks really good, but also like there's a bunch of gameplay opportunities that can come about. So I'm interested to see like the actual game in motion.
Yeah, and they did talk about that. They talk about really well balancing it with the gameplay. But let me push it over to you. So, kind of, what's some of your thoughts? I know you like to play a lot of co-op, right?
Yeah.
So, as you kind of like have read some of the things, I know they touched on some of those aspects about it, like being a wider environments and giving you multiple paths. Like, did any of those things kind of jump out to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one thing that's pretty exciting about this is just the sheer amount of options you have approaching encounters, which I'm sure everyone here is super familiar with when it comes to, like, say, Halo, the second level. Though even then, right, even with Halo, is sure you had your open way to approach the encounter, but once the encounter started, it was just waves coming at you. While this feels like it's the next level or the next step, where they're really wanting you to go how you want to go. You know, it's hard to describe exactly. I mean, a good example I would say in terms of this specific topic was from actually the previous blog post where they talked about how when it came to the vehicle, what do they call him? The vehicle lord, I think. But
Lord.
yeah, either way, when it came to him, he's like, listen, to the design team, you guys design whatever you want, and I'll design a vehicle to go through it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things they kept emphasizing is like having the multiple paths. Obviously they do have to. I liked hearing about the fact they're really trying to balance it, back and forth, because I think people really want both. They want Halo to accomplish everything. It's like, well, what would you prefer? People want all of it. So I mean, it does sound like they get that a lot better. Jesse, what's some of your thoughts on that?
Oh, sorry, I'm helping with the Halo community stream. What was the topic?
Yeah, that you wouldn't be doing if I wouldn't have booked us like this. But yeah, just about like some of balancing the game design and environments. Any kind of thoughts on that?
I enjoy good balance. In fact, I dislike bad balance.
All right. Well, moving on.
Very deep.
Overall, more in depth. Good balance, good. Bad balance, very bad. Boom.
Thanks for the deep dive. All right. So one of the things I did talk about, let me read this part out. So he was saying, he's talking about like the tool, like the Grappleshot, definitely challenge us to rethink the way we build our environments, because it's such a versatile and fun mechanic that allows players to get nearly anywhere that they can reach. The art team has added the added challenge of ensuring that we do allow for players to get to spots and areas that in previous titles we may have been prevented to getting to. The good news is that not only is the gameplay much more fun because of it, but we can also expect players to get to some really awesome locations and vantage points that will further show off the beauty of the world we've created. For me, the Grappleshot is an exciting example of a new gameplay feature that provides great wins for the players and devs alike. I'm going to throw this over to you, Nick, because you're a huge like Zelda fan, right? Like you play Breath of the Wild and stuff like that. So I think maybe you might be able to kind of relate to this. I think that was one of the keys in that game was you could climb up to anything and get vantage points anywhere. So like when you kind of hear this stuff, like does that kind of trigger any thoughts of that, or kind of what are some of your thoughts on it?
It's good. Like, I mean, I've always said that I know that Halo CE wasn't an open world game. I'm aware of that, but it was as close to it as we were going to get in a first person shooter at the time. And obviously now we're talking 20 years later. I'm hoping that we have the opportunity to sort of, like, I think if you can combine a proper open world with that sandbox that Halo is known for, maybe it might provide the opportunity for that emergent gameplay that Breath of the Wild has.
Yeah.
And the irony of that is I'm not even the sort of person that takes full advantage of it, but it's good to know that sort of thing is there. Like,
I like their
because
setup of it because they're not. It's not just open world. Everything's open. You go. The areas are still open. The way they described it was it's open world in between levels, and then the levels are Halo levels, and I think that's perfect.
like open hubs kind of thing.
Yeah.
Open
Exactly.
hubs.
You can attack
Um,
them at
but-
the angle you want to.
Well, you know, the
Because-
ironic part is a lot of open worlds really are not very
Interesting.
dynamic.
Open.
Dynamic in terms of game design, like
It's the same
gameplay.
thing. You
It's
climb up this, you fight this thing, and that's it.
yeah,
Look tower.
if I'm being honest, Breath of the Wild is probably the only true open world game out there. It's probably the only one. If I'm at least in my opinion, like Horizon Zero Dawn and
Assassin's Creed.
like I remember playing Horizon Zero Dawn not long after Breath of the Wild, and just despite the fact that it was a quote unquote open world, it was surprisingly restrictive in where I could go and what I could do.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild.
It was all a facade, basically.
All
Yep.
of the systems were built to work together, and in most open world games, it's sort of tunneling you and ferreting you in a way so that you get to this system, then you have this system. That's the main thing. In Breath of the Wild's triumph for me, because I enjoyed it, was just everything always worked together. That was like their main focus.
So you're saying that Crackdown 3 is a better open world than Horizon Zero Dawn?
It's a
Hey, well, in
sandbox that is
Crackdown, I
awesome.
could go anywhere.
Exactly.
I could
Yep.
go anywhere in Crackdown. Like and again, it's not about the size. Like people think about the size of the world. It's not about the size. It's about how open it is and how much they let you do. And in Crackdown, you could pretty much do anything.
Yeah,
I don't think there was
Traversal
anywhere I
was
couldn't get to.
good. Being able to jump, dash, jump, climb onto things, and keep doing
And
that over and over.
glide
And over.
across the world.
It was just fun.
Yeah.
A good
There
open
was
world
nowhere
needs
you
to have
couldn't go in
really-
Crackdown.
Yeah, it is. Really fun traversal is key for something that's going to be very big.
Yeah, you're not wrong about Horizon Zero Dawn though. That was frustrating when you couldn't jump on like on a ledge that was like it's barely
It
your
was
waist
just-
high, and you're just like
Yeah, like there'd be a ledge there that you could almost jump over, but the game
Right.
just artificially blocked you. And I'm like, why? Why have you done that? Like,
But you know
just-
what? That's what is exciting about this, because when they talk about like balance and everything, so like when you're seeing these big vistas, and it's like I'm wondering, and this is a thought that's coming to my head. Like you're seeing these big, wide open environments, and they look really cool. But it's one thing when it's a static background, when it's a thing that and I think this is why people really like Zelda. And I'll be honest, like I haven't played a lot of hours into that, but when you hear people talk about it, it's like you see this big, beautiful background, and you can actually climb up that thing, right? And you
Yes,
can look
you can.
down from that thing.
Yeah.
So like that changes kind of the way that feels. Like when you're in this environment and you're driving through it, and I'm thinking about this in Halo, it's like, hey, I'm going to drive through this, and I look up and I see like like the ship, and it's like in the ground, and there's like an opening up there, and maybe I can grapple up there and see what's in the ship, that kind of stuff. I think that's, and you think about this being kind of like a game that's going to keep going, and taking that foundation just sounds exciting to me. And that sounds, to me, that's that's the thing that kind of really stands out here. It really sounds like they understand what emergent gameplay is.
The screenshot that talked about stealing a Banshee to get somewhere you can't get otherwise is exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I just hope that they design a world that encourages exploration, like something I've always wanted in Halo, and it sounds like this one has it. And I've said this many times. I want them to like hide stuff in the world that you don't necessarily have to find. Like it's not part of the game, but it's something that will actually help you during the game, and you feel rewarded for finding it. Like
Kind of
maybe
like
there's
ODST.
hidden upgrades for your armor. Maybe there's hidden
Right.
upgrades for your scope. Maybe there's like
Maybe
encourage me to look for that stuff. Like
If they
maybe
have
I want to.
a weapon system, like give me the ability, okay, I found this, now I can call this weapon in because I did some exploration, I found it, there's a reason to go do it.
Yeah.
Like don't necessarily punish me for taking the scenic route. Like just maybe I want to take the long way.
Yeah.
Right.
Like and same with Breath of the Wild punishes you a little bit with the stupid stamina.
Hmm.
But like if you took stamina away from Breath of the Wild, it would improve the game even more. And that's the problem. Breath of the Wild gives you this amazing open world, and then they kind of punish you for wanting to use it by giving you stamina. Like, why would I bother climbing that huge mountain if I'm going to run out of stamina?
I haven't
halfway?
really played.
I found this new weapon that broke after I used it for 3
Yeah,
months.
there's that. But in
Yeah.
terms of stamina, I haven't really played Breath of the Wild. But in terms of Immortals, I actually really like the stamina because in a
Way
sense
more. They gave you way more.
they
That's
do. Okay,
the base.
that might be it. But also, I
Yeah,
feel
it's
like
a lot more forgiving.
every tall mountain in Immortals has a path up, so it's also like its own game kind of, where like you go to the right.
No,
go
no.
to up.
Zelda's stamina runs out in like 3 seconds.
Okay, yeah.
Mortals, you have
Like
at least 4 more base.
But Nick, no, I want, that's what I want. Like, I am not this complete, like, you're not going to get me to go chase every damn side quest and every nook and cranny just to get a 100% achievement. I'm just too old for that,
Mm.
you know. And that's what games like Assassin's Creed do. It's like, oh, this is your reason for doing this really, boring story, side story, and doing the same thing for hundreds of hours, is that you're going to get like this achievement, or you have to, for it to complete the game. Like, this to me sounds like they get it, right? Like, it's like, hey, there's going to be some other types of emergent gameplay, different rewards, different things you can try and places you can get to. Proven, I know you had your hand up, and you're more. I'm not going to catch you off guard this time. What was one of the things you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think the thing for exploration, I'm just hoping that there's no, like, not too many invisible walls. Eventually there's going to have to be some kind of barrier.
Yeah, they
But
actually mentioned that in the post too a little bit.
yeah, I'm because when I'm looking at the screenshot of the beam emitter tower, like, I'm hoping that you can somehow, maybe not like a direct grapple to the top, but maybe you could. Because the thing I like about Halo is you can kind of get anywhere you want on the map if you're able to, like, pull off a maneuver. Like, you could
Yeah, like if you
grenade
really
jump
want to.
somewhere.
You
Yeah,
jump
like,
in that limiter and ride it to the other side, bruh.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You look at some videos online of where people get to, and then you look at how they got there, and I'm like, what?
yeah, like, I forgot what map, but when Halo 2, like, I forgot what was the weapon that was, like, on top of the
In New
map. I
Mombasa,
forgot
right?
what- Yeah, like,
Yeah.
the thing
The
I
Scarab
always like
gun.
about Halo is it feels like they give you the base abilities, but then if you play enough and you kind of experiment enough, you can also get to, like, wherever you want, kind of. So I'm hoping for Infinite, you can basically go wherever you want on the map, but maybe it's not like a thing where you can just, like, fly up there, but you can kind of, like, I don't know, like, pull off some trick to get there. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
If you design your game well enough, exploring for 100% isn't arduous. Like, if you make exploration rewarding, then people will do it.
Right.
That's one of the
Where-
places Immortal really hit it. Is it's rewarding, and it might be repetitive, but it's so fun to do it that I never
Yeah.
minded it.
Like, you're not exploring in
Where
Immortals.
Assassin's
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, in Assassin's Creed, to me, it all just feels like work, which
Yeah.
is
Yes.
why I'm not really interested in doing it. In Breath of the Wild, to me, it didn't feel like work. Yes, there were frustrations about it, like the lack of stamina and all that sort of stuff, but the exploration aspect of it didn't feel like work. It felt rewarding. And if they can nail that in Infinite, then it'll go a long way towards the game's longevity, if they can get the exploration aspect right.
Yeah, I completely agree. And making sure all those systems work together, right? So it's not just about climbing up this big thing. It's about getting all the toys, putting toys into that mix that make it rewarding, and allow you to do some cool things, right? That you maybe wouldn't have done if you didn't do that. But Daniel, I know you've been kind of waiting to jump in there, man. Would you want to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, on the sandbox meets visuals point, two points really. The first thing is, this sounds like everything that I think every single one of us has mentioned in previous episodes about, the failings of 4 and 5, at least in the campaign aspect, was the lack of a true sandbox. And I mean, the elements of using the grapple shot to change up the each gunfight, the time of day, the different tools that will allow you to change up the traversal to actually change those each encounter, so that when you go back and do it again, or you're having to go back through the area to get to a new whatever that opens up, it seems to be an embodiment of what we've all been wanting. Something that it's not just the same firefight every time you play that level or every time you go into that section.
You're right.
And then on the other part, we kind of mentioned it before with the vehicles, with the tessellation of ground textures and things like that. They talk about making sure there's opportunities for sick jumps, TM, things like that. It's like, it seems like they understand that using the artist's grandiose ideas isn't necessarily going to be a hamper on the level design. They're going to be utilizing that in effect, properly, rather than as a pigeonhole.
Yep. All good points. Anybody want anything else to say on that before we kind of try to move forward? And
one last thing. I know I keep doing this.
Sure.
I wanted to bring it up earlier, actually, but
All right,
and this
Steve
is kinda,
Jobs.
this might ruffle some feathers, but or make people a little confused. But we were talking about how we wanted to have some things to do in like an open environment that just feel good to do, not because you're checking a check mark on a box, right? Be it upgrades or whatnot. Somehow I felt one good example of this was in Gears 5, a specific part of it. And I know Gears 5 gets a lot of rag on for its, in a sense, ham-fisted open world aspects. But there was this one quest line, I guess you could say, where it was the same thing. You're just collecting upgrades. But it was about like this group of people that were ahead of you, just like barely ahead of you. And every time you'd show up and you'd get the upgrade, you'd get an update on these people. You'd get an update, an update, an update. And it intrigued me enough to be like, I want to know what happens, right? Do I meet them at the end? Are they dead? They're dead. That's a spoiler. But I mean, it's Gears. But that small little story, it's completely unrelated to the main story and completely self-contained, was enough for me to give me enough motivation to find that, no matter where I was.
Right.
I feel Infinite could do that again and again and again. Like the door's open.
Yeah, and there's just so many directions that can go.
Exactly.
You're right. Especially if with some of the things we've been hearing about all the backstory with the Zeta Halo, they probably
there's so much room.
So we don't have to go fetch somebody's damn leg as a side
or
thing
10 brute fangs.
Right, yeah. Like, do this thing 10 times. Like, please don't do that.
If you're not going to let me collect 73 jackal feathers, then cancel the whole game.
But you have to kill 100 jackals, though, because some are born without feathers, apparently, even though you can see it on them right before you kill them.
Right. Okay.
Oh my God. All right, cool. All right, so I think that kind of wraps up the main points of the article. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple things that I missed in there, but it was a pretty meaty thing. I do want to make sure we get time for community questions and stuff. First, though, we did have a real quick update that just dropped before our show on the MCC. Jesse, you got that with you, or would you like to update that?
It was nothing huge. The next season was talked about, and it's going to be about the Halo arcade game, Fireteam Raven. You get 4 separate ODST armors being put in the MCC that all look really good. There's also some of the Halo Online armors come in. They don't look real good. In fact, they look absolutely.
What, you don't need eyes to see? I mean,
oh, my ears.
Yep, somebody's mic.
But one of the bigger things they're adding in are they're adding in backpacks and stuff for customizing the back of your Spartan for the first time. Showed up various backpacks and like a fire axe and some other stuff that looks cool.
Looks really cool. Well, it's interesting.
It's neat to have, and obviously all this is a preview for what most likely Infinite's multiplayer monetization is going to be based like. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some sort of perks to give you more, or even a really cool perk of Game Pass Ultimate. You get the season pass stuff to really try and pull people in. They're bringing in some maps, which look really cool. Just sort of kind of what Master Chief Collection updates are going to be for the next, however long until they hand it off to the community for modding purposes. And They're pretty much getting anything, any Halo game that was ever made. What can we take from it? It feels like, essentially.
Yeah.
And those ODST outfits look real cool. The Halo Online ones look like Dead Space, so they're cool in that way, even if they're not really Halo. And they did announce a new book, Halo Divine Wind, which has a human lady, a big old brute, a Sangheili, and a cool-looking robot in the background. So no information on that, but it looks interesting. An interesting cast of characters. I don't know if they've had many friendly brutes in the past.
Yeah.
A little update on the book that's coming out next week that stars Chakis, aka Guilty Spark, aka Spark, who is alive. If you haven't read the books, they brought him back in a cool way. And his book characters with Ryan Forge, the daughter of Forge from the first Halo Wars, who, spoiler, gets killed in Halo Wars. His daughter's been in a bunch of books, and they're pretty good. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm out.
All right. Well, thanks for the update, Mr. Jesse. Anybody have any thoughts on that before we move over to the community questions? If not, then we will.
Great breakdown of everything.
Reading is really hard.
It is. It takes a lot of work, but that is interesting. I do wonder if there's going to be any sort of a turn from the brutes in Halo Infinite.
Well,
Just like
one thing, people who are doing pre-spoiler influencers, I get to read it. I'm super happy. So they let me talk about it. Twitter posts are talking about how it does tap into older things, including information. Yeah, installation 00. Some Twitter persons on the blog saying point of light was wow, new lore potential, things that have new information to light and revelations that are mind blowing. It's obviously PR talk, but it sounds like there might be something that leads into Infinite.
Okay.
I know their timeline is really affected, but I do think that the book we're going to review next week or cover next week definitely leads directly into Infinite in a way that I really hope they bring up in Infinite. So their extended universe stuff definitely still seems like all one big continuity that has to make sense with the game.
They're still
and I
sticking
like
with it.
that.
cool.
Though,
All right.
really quick about the
okay.
MCC update.
You and you're always at the last one.
I'm actually.
Mate,
We're gonna call you. We're gonna
we
start
just want
calling
to
you
move on,
Columbo.
okay?
Yeah,
Mate,
that was actually a
we
joke.
wanna-
I'm not. I'm good.
Yeah, we're gonna start calling you Columbo, and you probably are too young to even know what that is.
This sounds familiar.
Yeah, Columbo used to be this mediocre detective show.
It was, but he was like the one more thing. It was an awful show, but it was a mediocre show. You're right.
It was lovingly bad.
But yeah, he was the one more thing guy. Okay, so we're gonna go to the questions, community questions. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the Twitter ones. So first we have the Winter Shoulder, and his question is, hey guys, enjoyed the show. I'm surprised you didn't mention Apex Legends Pathfinder grappling hook for comparable mechanics last episode. His question was, why does 343 keep breaking up teams in the books? First Bucks ODSTs, who are mostly back, and now Team Osiris. It's kind of annoying.
It's funny. I wrote an entire response to this and remembered, oh yeah, we're going to answer this on the podcast.
So basically, Winter Shoulder, you need to tune in for the book.
No, I meant I was writing it I was replying to him directly on Twitter. I was like, oh, wait, this is for the podcast.
This podcast.
Oh, okay. This is for the book podcast? Okay, so I'm reading something that should be for you.
No, I'm saying I was going to reply to him on Twitter, and then I remembered, oh, it's for the You Had Me at Hello podcast. I should answer it there.
Just answer it, Jesse.
Just answer it. Who's that
They
person?
break them up because people didn't like them. They didn't like ODST. They had them all in the books, and then they had to get Buck into Osiris, and then they realized nobody liked Osiris, so now they break up Osiris because nobody likes them. Everything's going to be about Chief. Hell, Blue Team's not even there. It's just Chief. They broke them up because the game's about Chief.
Yeah, I really think they should begin they should begin Halo Infinite doing a few things. They need to thin the character cast. So
We saw the Halo Infinity.
The Banished should just take out the entire Team Osiris, and then they needed to to take out the entire Promethean fleet as well. So we don't
No,
feel
unfortunately, I think we're all working together. You're not going to get that.
Just kill Ultron. All the Prometheans will just die on their own.
We're just gonna go back. We're gonna go back to Halo Master Chief. We're even
How
gonna
about
bring
this as a
back.
compromise? There's less Prometheans, but they're stronger because definitely, I bet you that's what they do with the Knights, and the Knights are more mini bosses
Yeah.
and not just constantly all the time enemies.
They just need to whack all the Prometheans, and then you can just bring
And
keys back from the dead.
850
It'd be a
types of
complete reboot.
Prometheans. And that's the only thing you ever fight again. Just Prometheans, all Covenants gone.
There should be a skull where every enemy is just a Promethean.
All right.
God,
Anybody
no,
got any
please.
thoughts on that? Other than that, I don't have any real good thoughts. Other than I think Don or Jesse kind of summarized it. It's just they were not well liked, so they broke them up.
Master Chief.
Yeah. Okay. So nerd propellant. I don't know if this is actually a question. He says Grappleshot appears to work such that heavier objects act as an anchor and the player is pulled towards them. But if MC is the heavier object in the interaction, he is the anchor. So what happens in co-op when two Master Chiefs grapple each other? Paradox.
Cool.
The singularity.
The world just ends. There's just
I
instantly.
don't know.
I don't think there's any hope. They
It's
probably move
anything
towards
like-
each other.
If it's anything like Titanfall 2, you just go at each other, and whoever melee times it better kills the other one.
That's probably what it's going to
Yeah.
be. Whoever gets it first, right?
Yeah, it'll be like a sword lunge.
Or the calculations are so complex your Xbox just shuts off. All right. So let's see here. We have what questions did I miss here? Oh, Opachi says biomes predictions in Halo Infinite.
Yeah,
Does
this could
anybody have
be
any bio?
this could be a pretty big discussion. I'm actually curious. I have a feeling personally that this is the only real biome we're getting in the base game.
I don't know.
We'll have structures, we'll have underground stuff, but when it comes to biomes, we're not going to have the deserts or the snowy levels. I think it's this. Oh, yeah.
I would wonder if, because it is in such disrepair and it is in, it's fractured, that the the terraforming elements aren't keeping up with it. So I think we might see some bleeding over of
That'd be really cool.
That's my personal thought.
All right, so we never got back to our predictions. Let's throw out a over under predictions. More than, let's say, 3 major biomes in Halo Infinite. Yes or no? So you you say no. They're going to.
I say under 2. Well, under 3. Under 3. I say 2 or less.
All right, Nick. What's your thoughts on that, man?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Or like
Huh?
What?
like
Wait.
tentacles.
Just wait until what the majority say, then just do the opposite.
Yeah, you need some comeback points after some lousy predictions in the first show. Jesse, what do you think?
My wife is yelling at me about my son shoving a bike into the way, and everything's falling over, and it's all a great to do. I missed everything.
Biomes,
okay.
yes or no? More than 2 biomes, yes or no?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
At launch, or are we talking about adding later?
Base game.
No, launch. Base game.
They talk about just having so many different sections. A big point to having those different, I don't think it's going to be like 3 or 4 sections overall, the way they've talked in the exploration, all that. And all the time, especially considering this is way more dev time than they've normally gotten, I definitely see more than 2.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna lean with you. I said that like 3 is the over under. So you think you say more, Jesse?
Absolutely. Especially, an extra year. So much of that is bringing back ideas you had to cut before because you didn't have the time. Now you have the time, you have the base outline of what you want your campaign to be. You can go back and stick things back in, areas that you might not have done before. I definitely think there'll be more, especially with like the constant talk of having these island sections that you're going to. One of the big selling what's the point of going to a new island if it looks the same? It needs to look different.
Yep.
I agree with you. I'm just keeping my expectations. Sorry.
Oh, you just changed it? See, we should have
No. I agree with them in the sense that it'd be great to have, but I'm keeping my expectations low. You know what I mean? In this aspect.
Be a bitch. Keep them high.
Is it because you got Nick here? You're trying to temper your expectations?
No, it's just I have a
The way
feeling
to go.
that they've only shown this biome. They've only talked about this biome. I don't know. It's just a feeling. Though, admittingly, in the blog post, they did use specifically begins in the Pacific Northwest biomes.
I think there's a reason why this stuff's broken up, but we'll keep going around. So, Daniel, what's your thoughts?
No, I think there's definitely going to be more than 3. I mean, they need the variation, and Zeta is it's a smorgasbord. So I think they're going to try to capture that.
Okay, and Proven, how about you?
Yeah, I think there's gonna be at least 3 or 4. I'm not sure. I just have a feeling like what they've shown us is very little of the game. Like I have a feeling maybe for the July whenever E3 happens, I feel like they're gonna show us something new.
That's a good point.
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna say that there's gonna definitely be more than 3. I'm
And also,
pretty
sorry to cut you off, but you can also think the game, they showed the opening cutscene and you're in space. So do you have a space level to start? That would be its own biome.
Did you
Like
say
you're going
Spice
on-
Girl?
Yeah, you fight Baby Spice, and
Sporty.
the one, not the one that's a Tory now that everyone hates.
If you want to be my
Ginger.
lover, first you got to be
Yeah.
my friend.
But like you start out in space, that's a biome. Like how many different types of ships are there that you're going to? You know, different building types. All those
are
things. I think those all count.
Not
There's
biomes.
no way you're
Okay.
not going in a ship, right? There's no way you're not going in a ship, especially this being a spiritual successor. You know you're going to be going into some underground structures. You're going to be going inside some.
Well, no. I agreed we're doing that. I was talking specifically biomes, like tundra,
okay.
desert, wintry, that kind of thing.
Maybe it's because the game just looked poor, but for the July demo, like it looks kind of deserty and orange. So I don't know if that's technically separate or like I don't know exactly what that was, but it looked a lot different than.
Different, but it was supposed to be the same one.
Like a savanna, right? It looked like almost.
I honestly think they were going for what they just showed in the screenshots again. They were showing off old versus new, and it was supposed to be the Pacific Northwest, but the lighting was so off that it's really hard to tell.
You meant the demo last year?
Yeah. It just looked because like if you look at some of the screenshots, like it just looks really orange and kind of deserty. But
I mean,
Yeah,
they showed the savanna in the 2018 trailer.
Yeah, they did. So you had that. They even showed so, and I bet you they have at least one snow area where the thing breaks and you got winter.
yeah,
You know,
That'd be cool.
if I'm gonna bet, I would say the Pacific Northwest is probably like the first 25% of the game, maybe, and then
Damn.
wherever else they take the game, like there's gonna be separate locations.
it'd be like every Nintendo game, like from the NES ever. You're gonna have a fire level, snow level.
Texas, Vegas.
All right, but yeah, I definitely think there's going to be more in there. I think they're going to surprise us, and because like they talked about this ring being different because of there's so much destruction going on in it. There's a lot of different things a lot of different excuses they could have to have different environments throughout. So I expect to see some of that. And I actually do think you'll have a desert level and a snow level. So, okay, that's good on that. Let's see. Am I missing?
Have we talked about the fact that they might go underwater?
Well, no, we didn't. Yeah, and they did show that, right? Like in the
there was a hint of that in the very first in the Slip Space Engine trailer. Again, maybe it was just purely for show, but yeah, it did look like maybe.
Yeah,
we might go a little bit deeper underwater than we normally would.
Yeah, I feel like I read it either in this update or somewhere else where they were kind of hinting at like the fact that you could go underwater into caves.
Part of the exploration being aquatic. I remember that too. I just don't remember where it was.
I mean, we know the warthog turns into a boat, right?
Do we?
They specifically mentioned new vehicles that did surprising things. So.
Yeah, you're probably right, Nick. You're probably going to go underwater.
And this wouldn't be the first Halo game to go underwater either.
Ruben's already underwater, so he's all set.
Why? When did we go underwater?
You didn't go, I guess, like like swimming or anything, but in what's it, Halo 3?
Halo 3, you could
Two,
play with
I
fishies.
thought was it Halo 2 with the elevators? Or was that Halo 3?
I think
Halo
it's
3.
Two
Two,
did
he's
it.
right, it
I
was
know
2.
two did it.
It does not count at all.
Well, I
Because I've
mean,
been playing through two, so
what I mean by that is, I mean, there are environments underwater. Like, it wouldn't be the first time there's buildings underwater, you could say. So what if you
True.
go in your little submarine and, go to those buildings?
yeah, maybe.
All right.
I mean,
So
in
yeah,
S117, you actually could go in the water and play with the fishies. So I know that doesn't count, but
yeah. I have a feeling that you're going to get in the vehicle and you're going to actually travel underwater to something. So
Hey,
it's just
you know what? I'm gonna I had it at 2, right? Can I move it to 3? 3 or less.
okay.
Biomes.
Or bust.
Yeah.
you just don't want to be wrong.
Who does?
It'd probably be more than 3, so you lost anyways. So we'll keep going on to question. Let's see. I see one more from Tavish Hill, who's also Nerd Propellant. That's his forum name. He says, "Any thoughts on the recording in the latest article?" I don't even know which one he's talking about. The
There's
recording.
a hidden audio recording that
Yep.
somebody found in the text where
Yeah.
it's Halsey
Hyperlinked. Yeah.
talking for a while, and it ends with talking to Chief. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
posted it.
I did not see that. So I'll have to listen to that after.
Ursel, could you play that?
Do you guys have
Can we
any
hear it?
thoughts?
I mean, it proves that they're not abandoning Halo 5, which is nice in a way.
Yeah, they could have abandoned it. I wouldn't get mad at them.
Neither would I.
So, all right. So,
It's Halsey, so you should definitely give it a listen. It's pretty sweet, and they despite the clear kind of mother-son relationship that Chief has with Halsey, she asks him a question at the end and he lies, essentially. I mean, that you'll have to listen to it so we can kind of go back into it, I guess, next time, but yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
okay. All right. So yeah, we'll definitely have to follow up on that and absorb that and have some thoughts. So good question. So now I know to look at it. Did we have any other questions that I'm missing?
No, I think that was it.
There was one, unless I totally missed what you guys were saying about like when I think there was multiple, like asking like when do you expect flighting to happen and how big do you expect the beta to be?
I think we talked
I
about
would definitely say, like you would think after E3, whatever that ends up being this year, during the summer, and fully multiplayer focused.
Open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's through they've talked about it before. It's going to be through their Halo Insider program, which you use for flighting on the Master Chief Collection.
Yep.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Which
I
is
don't think
open.
I don't think we're going to have a long flighting period like they initially intended, and the reason is they're going to want the next time they reveal Halo, they want the graphics to look better for obvious reasons. So
It'll be more of a stress test demo where they're closer to release. I don't think it's going to be
Yeah.
a full-on year before, like they did with Halo 5. Because I mean, originally it wasn't going to be anything. Then delaying the game a year brought back the idea that okay, we can do this now. So you get closer to release, you do a nice stress test, and give people the chance to play that multiplayer through the insider program, which generally
Can you
is open to
imagine if they got so ballsy that like around E3 time or so they released like some kind of vertical slice single player demo
that's
would
my
be
for
amazing.
Infinite?
that
Man,
would be
imagine that if they went from what they showed in July to like a year later going, here you go, we're so confident this looks amazing that we've created a little dedicated vertical slice single player demo just for you whinging bastards.
That's actually happening right now with Outriders, where they delayed it like 5 months eventually. In the end, it was going to be November, then it was going to be February, now it's going to be April. And they put out a demo that's the entire first chapter, and you can play it for hours. It's like this big piece of the game that carries over to the main game.
I need to download that.
It's some of the worst acting of all time. It's a really fun video game.
Worse than Horizon?
yeah.
Definitely.
I've heard it sets a new new bar.
It's
terms
Oh,
of
man,
very
that's sad.
early
cheese.
2000s cheesy Euro jank movie acting. But yeah,
What
if
the
they do
faces,
something,
the facial expressions are even better than Horizons.
they're more realistic and over the top, and it's something. If they get that type of demo for Infinite, I would be in heaven.
Nice. All right. Any final thoughts, you guys, on anything else?
I like turtles.
Okay, great. So
Halo dead.
right. No, that's an interesting thing you did bring up, Nick. If they had the balls to do that, that would be I mean, yeah, that would be impressive if they came out of the summer with a demo, especially.
I don't think they've ever done that before, have they? They've never
No.
actually technically done that before. They've never released a single player. Look, they've always done multiplayer betas, but I don't think they've ever done a single player one, have they?
No, they have never done
Wasn't
that.
Halo on a
Hmm.
demo disc once?
Sorry?
I thought Halo was on a demo disc once.
Well, Halo
Oh,
3
I don't
was
know.
part of there was a Halo 3, beta if you bought Crackdown 1 back
Yeah,
in the
that's
day.
right, but that was multiplayer.
That was multiplayer.
Yep.
They've never done
But I'm
single player.
saying there's never been a like now would be a good time to
Yeah.
have to sort of create that history of having the first ever single player demo of a Halo game.
Yep. Well, especially
In
if
my
you did,
opinion.
especially if you did it after E3, right? Because that's when you should start having stock back, and they should start getting some stock, and it's actually move some consoles probably.
I was right.
Be
I
a good
looked
way
it
to
up.
show confidence in the product.
Okay, it was
Yeah.
a year. It was it was almost half a year after release, but they did do a Halo demo in Official Xbox Magazine in June of 2002.
Well, that doesn't count. We're talking about
I know.
before.
I know.
Of CE, yeah. We're talking
mean,
about
they-
CE.
Yeah, was it like Silent Cartographer or something? I forget what exactly the demo was, but it has happened, just never before launch. That would be cool.
You know what? Since they're rebooting and since this is such a spiritual successor to Halo CE, that's exactly what they should do. They should have a disc that we have to boil that we can put into our Xboxes. We have to boil to get them to work, and then we can play the Halo Infinite demo after the summer.
Reshape it into a USB stick to plug it into a Series S and play it on there.
Yeah. All right. I think that's everything. Unless somebody speak up if I missed anything. If not, it is time.
I'm sure you missed something. What it is, I don't know.
Right. We'll just cover it next time.
We should have the end. We should sort of close out the show by playing The Great Pretender.
I'm going to
That
block you
should
for
be our
6
end show audio.
I don't know about that. Hey, so how about you take over?
Great Pretender by The Platters. That should be our end of show song.
the MCA. We can't do it.
We'll think about it for the next one. So go ahead and sign us off.
Yeah. One thing though is we did if we missed anything in the blog post and you guys want us to talk about it, let us know. Just either comment or tweet us or whatnot, or next episode when we ask for questions, just ask us then. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening instead, really appreciate it. As you probably know, we have a forum you can check out. We're pretty active. It's quite a big community. It's growing as well. There's the YouTube channel. We have a lot of different videos as well. This Monday we'll be having this week, Wednesday or Thursday or so, we should be uploading our first spin-off episode, I suppose you could say, of this podcast. We'll be focusing on the book Shadows of Reach. It does relate to Halo Infinite, so if that's something you're interested in, please keep an eye out for that. And other than that, thank you for watching.
Ciao for now.
See you guys.
Bye.